Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with some more updates coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and I've got several news updates to share with you here today. I have some information coming out from yesterday's update regarding Russian drones entering into NATO airspace. Two countries had their airspace violated just in the last 48 hours. And this was on September 7th, the night of September 7th. We had Russian Shahed drones entering into Romania and also Latvia. The reports inside Romania were showing that a drone passed over their territory but did not crash. Romania scrambled fighter jets but did not intercept the drone, and it exited out near the Black Sea on the southern portion of their territory. And then also in Latvia, we had reports of a Russian drone coming from Belarus entering into Latvia and apparently crashed. The military investigated, supposedly found this drone and said it was a Russian Shahed drone armed with explosives. And I've got information from their military that shows that they are not going to be responding to this. There will be no military escalation coming from Latvia. So I will show you guys that information here in just a moment. And the only attack that I know of happening inside of Ukraine yesterday was in Nikopol. This is in the Dnipro-Petrovsk region, very close to Zaporizhia as well, near the Dnipro River. And we had a Russian shelling attack inside that city. There was a home that was struck, and we had a poor young 16-year-old girl that lost her life due to this attack. So we will talk about that as well. But it's the only attack that I know of inside of Ukraine in the last 24 hours. So it looks like majority of the residents of Ukraine were able to get some decent amount of sleep last night, as I believe there wasn't too much crazy attacks happening. So we'll go over several reports today. This video that you're watching on the screen is another Ukrainian FPV drone dropping molten thermite now down in the Kherson region, which is in the southern portion of Ukraine. So I wanted to show you guys this. This was new video footage coming out in the last 12 hours. And we've seen a lot of these FPV drones being used with molten thermite. And they use these to drop molten thermite all over the forest and burn out Russian positions. So it seems to be very effective, and Ukraine has been doing a lot of this with these FPV drones. We've seen it happening in the Luhansk region on the eastern side of Ukraine. We've seen it in the Donetsk region. Also up in the Kursk region of Russia, we've seen Ukraine using these. So lots of these molten thermite drones being used right now. So I thought I'd share that with you guys. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the news on X, and let me start sharing some of this information. So from Bliskovka, the Russian drone that flew into Latvia on September 7th turned out to be a Shahed with explosives. This was stated by representatives of the Latvian National Armed Forces during the briefing. According to the military, the appearance of the drone cannot be considered as an open military escalation against the country, since its target was not Latvia. So it looks like Latvia is not going to respond to this, just like we've seen every other NATO nation coming under attack by Russian drones, even missiles inside of Poland at one point. We are not going to see any kind of escalation coming from Latvia. They're going to just write this one off and say it was a mistake, that Russia was not intending to attack Latvia, that the original target was Ukraine. So I'm sure that will probably upset some of you, but at the same time, I guess it's good because, we don't need a major war happening over here between Russia and NATO. Obviously, that would be a very bad situation. So maybe in some ways it's a good thing, but I understand at the same time that, when NATO needs to stand up for themselves when they keep coming under attack like this, they need to show strength, not weakness. So it's definitely a difficult situation over here. But that is the latest coming out from Latvia. Okay, so let's move on to our next report here. This is from Bliskovka also. In the morning, the Russians shelled Nikopol. A 16-year-old girl died. This was announced by the head of Dnipro-Petrovsk RMA, Syrskyi. Employees of the State Emergency Service retrieved her from the rubble of the damaged building. 3 people were also injured with shrapnel wounds. Okay, so we had 3 people injured and also a 16-year-old girl unfortunately losing her life in this attack. We can see lots of damage here on this property. And from what I understand, this was not a military target. I did not find any information talking about that, and it appears to be just literally somebody's home being struck by probably a Russian missile or drone. We don't really know. We just hear of shelling. This could have even been artillery, who knows. But definitely a major attack here on this home inside of Nikopol. Okay, so let's move on to our next update. From Jurgen Nodit, Ukraine can start the production of its own nuclear weapons if the West and NATO do not fulfill their obligations to us, former Deputy Prime Minister for European Integration Oleg Ryabchuk said. We can technically and realistically start production, somewhat reminiscent of Israel, which said they do not have nuclear weapons, but if necessary, we will launch an appropriate nuclear attack on the aggressors. This was reported by the Times of Ukraine. Okay, so this is a very interesting report, but also a very major report too, because obviously Ukraine does not have nuclear weapons. They gave them up willingly in 1994 under the Budapest Memorandum, the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons agreement between multiple countries. Russia signed this. I don't know if Belarus was involved, but I believe like Britain, maybe even France. Multiple European nations signed this as well, and in return, Ukraine was supposed to have lots of security agreements for many of the countries that signed this. Even the United States, I believe, signed this as well. So now Ukraine, I'm sure they're regretting the fact that they don't have nuclear weapons, considering they were attacked. And to me, the reason why I wanted to show you guys this, whether Ukraine decides to build nuclear weapons or not, this shows how everybody needs to be independent. You have to provide your own security, your own defense, whether it's a country, whether it's, a family trying to protect themselves. This shows how important it is not to rely on other people to protect you, that you need to protect yourself, because obviously Ukraine, I'm sure, is regretting the fact that they gave up these nuclear weapons and now they were attacked by a nuclear nation. And this war has been dragging on for 2.5 years. And maybe if they had nuclear weapons, they might have not been invaded, right? So obviously, this is a very big deal in Ukraine, and we'll have to see. I'm going to continue to follow this story, excuse me, and see if we get some updates on this. If Ukraine actually does start production of nuclear weapons, I would not be surprised at some point they do, even in the future, just considering that, in history, that this actually went down. It was a major push into their nation and trying to take them over from Russia. So I thought I would share this story with you. This is being talked about a lot on X right now. So also I have a report coming out from the eastern side of Ukraine near the Pokrovsk direction. This report is from the Moscow Times. Russia claims another village in East Ukraine near Pokrovsk. Okay, so we talked about this yesterday. I let you guys know it was being reported on mainstream news as well, that the town of Novorodivka was supposedly under control by the Russians. Now, that's what the Russians are saying. We'll see what the Ukrainians come out and say later. Who knows? They'll probably not launch another counteroffensive in that region, maybe take over parts of that town. But the Russian Defense Ministry was reporting that Novorodivka was under control yesterday by the Russians, the Russian military, excuse me. And also now we're hearing right here, it says Russia said Monday its forces had captured the East Ukrainian village of Memrik. I don't know if it's Memrik, if I'm probably saying that wrong, or Memrik, a stepping stone to the Kiev-held logistics hub of Pokrovsk, some 20 kilometers or 12 miles away. Okay, so we've been talking a lot about Pokrovsk, a major rail hub, logistics hub for Ukraine, and they're trying desperately to hold on to this. So Pokrovsk lies on the intersection of a key road that supplies Ukrainian troops and towns across the Eastern Front, has long been a target for Moscow's army. Units of the center grouping of troops liberated the settlement of Memrik. Russia's defense ministry said Memrik was home to fewer than 400 people before the conflict began in 2022. So it is a very small town. I'll pull it up on a map right here. We'll take a look at this and I'll show you guys where exactly this is at. So we'll zoom in over here to the Eastern Front in the Donetsk region. And here is the town of Memrik right here. Okay, and Pokrovsk is over here. So I showed you guys yesterday, Novorodivka supposedly is under control by the Russians. And if you notice, between here and Pokrovsk, there's really no major settlements in between, okay? Other than that, it's maybe Myrnorad, which is over here to the north, and Pokrovsk would be more towards the east. So basically from here, Novorodivka on over to Pokrovsk, it's just open farmland, okay? So it'll be much easier for the Russians to move on over to Pokrovsk. And then down here near Memrik is very close to Selidov, which doesn't surprise me that the Russians took this over. As far as I know, down here, Ukraine is still controlling this town of Ukrainsk. But Memrik is now supposedly under control by the Russians. And the Russians do have control, I believe, of this town, Mykolaiv, and a portion of Selidov. But I know the Ukrainians recently launched a counteroffensive inside the northwestern side of Selidov as well. So I know heavy fighting is happening near there. But what is being reported is the Russians do have control of another smaller town here near Pokrov. So they are gaining more territory over here slowly but surely. Although we are seeing some successes with the Ukrainians pushing into certain areas as well of the Donetsk region down here. So we'll go ahead and move on now. I've got another report here coming out from Nexta. Sweden's largest airport, Arlanda, suspended flights due to unknown drones. This was reported by Air Live. Swedish police said that restrictions at Stockholm Arlanda Airport were imposed for 2.5 hours on the night of September 9th. The daily Aftonbladet newspaper, citing a source in the Aviation Authority, writes that 4 drones were spotted in the sky over Sweden. Police are investigating the incident. We suspect that it was a deliberate act, but cannot say for what purpose. For reasons of confidentiality of the investigation, we do not want to go into detail, said a police spokesman. So this was a very interesting story coming out just this morning. And apparently there was some drones in the skies over this airport in Sweden. Now, Sweden is nowhere close to Russia. It's further away, just to the east of Sweden, we have Finland. Okay, now Finland is a border nation to Russia. Now, if these drones were in the skies of Sweden, I don't know if they could come from Russia. Maybe it's possible. I don't see how they would make it over NATO airspace coming from, let's say, Finland or even the Baltic nations and not be spotted. But some sort of drones were found in the skies of Sweden, and it caused the airport to have to basically shut down temporarily and halt their flights due to these drones. Now, I don't have any updates as far as, if there was any attacks or anything taking place here, but definitely very interesting happening inside of Sweden. But we know that Sweden is a new NATO member recently, just over the last year or so. So who knows if this was Russian affiliation? We don't really know. But we've also got this report coming out from Bliskovka in regards to Sweden as well. Sweden announced a new package of military aid to Ukraine for over 400 million euros. The package contains a number of armor-piercing and small-caliber projectiles, recoilless rifles, and anti-tank mines, grenade launchers, protective equipment, helmets, and winter uniforms. In addition, Sweden is transferring naval and camouflage equipment. Okay, so a major military aid package going to Ukraine from Sweden, and we've been hearing lots of this recently, just over the last few days, as obviously Volodymyr Zelensky was over at the Ramstein Airbase meeting with lots of Western partners and received a ton of support coming from multiple nations, mainly NATO nations. But looks like Sweden's going to be allocating a major military aid package for Ukraine as well. And let's go ahead and move on here now to War Monitor. So now I've got multiple reports coming out from the Kursk region we're going to be sharing with you. This says Russian forces continue to report with a degree of panic about Ukrainian forces moving elite brigades into the Kursk district, the 47th Brigade, the 72nd Brigade, the Magyars Birds, and the K2 battalion elements have been spotted. Okay, so this was reported just today around 3 a.m., and we're hearing, once again, we've been hearing this probably over the last maybe 24, 48 hours, that the Russians over there are very concerned about seeing lots and lots of reserve troops showing up from the Ukrainians. And they're afraid that, they're either going to get pushed back or they're not going to be able to, hold back the Ukrainians in this region. And we have been hearing a lot that Ukraine is continuing to advance in the Kursk region. They are not being slowed down by any means. They may be slowed down to an extent, but they're continuing to push in the Kursk region. And we have not heard of any Russian troops taking over settlements that have previously been taken by Ukraine. As far as I know, they control somewhere around 1,300 square kilometers in the Kursk region. And also, they control at least 100 settlements. And I have not heard of those numbers changing at all since the beginning of this operation taking place in the Kursk region. So also, got this report from NOAA Reports, Kursk and Border Region Operations, day number 35, Russia preparing a counterattack. An overview of the daily events in the Kursk and other border regions. According to Russian channels, Russia is preparing a counterattack in the Kursk region, aiming to restore all lost territory in recent weeks. Okay, this was reported just around the same time as that last report we were just looking at right now, just today on September 9, 2024. And he put a picture here showing the area that is currently under control by the Ukrainians. And we're hearing that the Russians may launch a counterattack very soon. And it wouldn't surprise me because I'm going to show you a report also coming out from Russia's state TV discussing that it's been over a month now, and we have not seen the Russians taking over any of this territory that has been claimed by Ukraine yet, that there definitely appears to be major problems. So maybe Russia is preparing a major counterattack. I'm sure at least sometime soon they need to try to start regaining some of this territory that has been lost. Otherwise, going to continue to look very bad on Russia, look bad on Vladimir Putin. And then the longer this goes by, the more the Ukrainians can dig in, start building trenches and defensive lines, and it'll make it more difficult as time goes on for Russia to regain this territory. So I've got this report from Nexta also. Oleksandr Syrskyi reports, he's the commander-in-chief of Ukrainian armed forces, said in an interview with CNN that Ukraine chose Kursk region for the offensive because it turned out to be the weakest area in the Russian defense. Ukraine is doing everything possible not to lose Pokrovsk, and the Kursk operation helps in this. In particular, it deprived the occupiers of the ability to maneuver their units. So this report from CNN was just a couple days ago, I believe. I did report some of the things he was stating in this interview, but apparently this was something else that Oleksandr Syrskyi did mention during that interview. They were obviously doing everything they can to hold on to that key logistics hub city of Pokrovsk on the Eastern Front in the Donetsk region. And also, they obviously launched the invasion into the Kursk region, according to him, because that was the weakest defense for the Russians in that area. So also, we've got this report coming out from the Kursk region as well, and this is from Military News UA. The Russians are traveling at the moment when Ukraine attacked the bridge near Kursk region. So I showed you guys this video footage, I believe yesterday, of another bridge coming under attack in the Kursk region in the town of Kursk. This was the third town of an area of approximately 700 square miles that we've been talking about that Ukraine is contesting right now, trying to take over. They've been trying to blow the bridges to cut the Russians off so they cannot come into this region. And I've got video footage now on the ground of Russian soldiers pulling up to this bridge as it was coming under attack. So it's literally like a first-person view of this bridge being destroyed. And we showed you guys yesterday, it was the view from above, from the sky, from a drone potentially monitoring this area, and we were able to see the strikes on the bridge. But now we're going to be able to see them on person on the ground. Take a look at this.
Кассетами ебашил. Назад. Давай, кустам, кустам. Давай, давай, братуха. Красавчик. Чух. Все целы? Давай, назад. Ебать нам, блядь, подфартило, а? Кто-то за нас хорошо молит.
Okay, so the rest of this video just mainly shows them driving away, but in case you missed it, it happened really quick in the beginning. We'll roll it back here real quick, and you can see in the beginning as they pull up, these cluster munitions striking this bridge from the HIMARS, and then eventually the HIMARS high explosive rounds striking that bridge as well, destroying it completely so the Russians cannot cross into this region. So right over here, this is where the same river is at. We've been talking a lot about that. And there's 3 bridges in this region that have been blown up. And this is more video footage coming out from the 3rd bridge. This was the final bridge, from what I understand, that was destroyed after the other 2 were taken out in Zvano and also Glushkovsky. Okay, so very big video coming out there that I wanted to share with you guys. Now let's talk about Russian state TV just for a moment. I want to show you guys this. As they discuss what the plans are to try to get the Ukrainians to get pushed out of the Kursk region. And it says here from Natalka, we need to destroy our own villages, our own settlements, our own forests. Russian propagandists came up with a strategy how to get Ukrainian army out of Kursk Oblast. Okay, so they basically are going to discuss in here they need to destroy their own territory, their own land, and get the Ukrainians out, as basically the counter push from the Russians is not really working. They've been fighting against the Ukrainians in this region of the Kursk region of Russia, for over a month now, and we have not seen any gains from the Russians, at least not what's being reported. So take a look at what they have to say real quick.
Уже месяц прошел с момента вторжения, по сути. Ну да.
на территорию Курской области. И сегодня в официальных сводках речь идет о том, что мы отражаем атаки. Но пока еще нет сводок о том, что мы наступаем и освобождаем те или иные территории, или почти нет. То есть явно здесь есть свои проблемы. Они объективно существуют, потому что на самом деле, если враг обосновался в захваченных селах, деревнях, населенных пунктах, в лесной полосе, то для того, чтобы его оттуда выбить, надо уничтожать все, что там находится. Так же, как это происходит на передовой линии фронта.
Ну да.
То есть уничтожать свои села, свои деревни, свои леса.
Okay, so that's pretty crazy to see them openly admitting that the Russians are failing to push the Ukrainians out of the Kursk region. And as you can see, what he says here is because there's no official reports showing that the Russians are repelling any attacks, we need to do something drastic. We need to, destroy this area. How do they destroy it? We've heard about carpet bombing, things like that, but we haven't seen any major action from the Russians just yet. But yeah, it's crazy. It's been over a month now that the Ukrainians have pushed into this region of Russia in the Kursk region, and we have not seen the Russians repelling any attacks really at all. We've seen the Ukrainians kind of slow down a little bit, but we have not seen any territory be regained by Russia or anything like that. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, it definitely shows, to me, what it shows is that the Russians are really not so concerned about the Kursk region, because we continue to see gains being made on the eastern front of Ukraine, but we don't see any gains happening in the Kursk region of Russia. And then also, what are we hearing? We're hearing that lots of reserve troops are showing up from the Ukrainians. So most likely, when it comes to military versus military, it doesn't look like the fighting is going to help Russia out much. They're probably going to have to do something drastic at some point, or maybe just kind of give up on this region, just try to hold the Ukrainians back, and maybe try to negotiate this coming November, or whenever that time comes that Russia and Ukraine decide to start figuring out how to end this war, is probably the way that that's going to go. So also, I want to report to you from Nexta, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is working on a plan for a peaceful settlement between Russia and Ukraine, which is intended to bring Moscow to the negotiating table, La Repubblica has said. According to the newspaper, it could involve territorial concessions from Ukraine, and the plan does not rule out the transfer of some Ukrainian territories to Moscow. Scholz wants to go down in history as the Chancellor of Peace, and disappointed by the failure of elections in eastern Germany, hopes to improve his position by playing the Ukrainian card, the newspaper said. So this is German Chancellor Scholz right here, Olaf Scholz. This is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, the former Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba, and then we've got Boris Pistorius back here, the German Defense Minister, and Annalena Baerbock as well. She's here. So basically from this story, what are we hearing? Okay, we're hearing that coming November, we've been hearing this from Volodymyr Zelensky, that there's going to be some peace proposals coming up, that Ukraine wants to try to end this war. Olaf Scholz has been coming out a lot over the last 24, 48 hours saying he wants to be involved in this. He wants to create a peace plan for Ukraine. But if you notice, a big part of this has nothing to do with salvaging the territories for Ukraine that has been taken. And I've been talking to you guys about this as well. I think this may be the route that this goes at some point if Ukraine cannot regain these territories on their own, and it does not look like that they have the ability to do so right now. They are making some gains in the Eastern Front, but then in some areas they're losing some ground as well. So who knows, maybe Ukraine will come out with something drastic. They are producing lots of their own domestic-made weapons right now. We've been hearing them producing lots of cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, the Palinitsia drone, so maybe it'll give them some advantages here soon. But it's looking likely that if this war does come to an end, we may see some of these territories being conceded to Russia and given up to them. So we'll see how that goes, but I want to let you know that Olaf Scholz is preparing a peace settlement plan right now. Okay, also, coming out from NOAA reports, the Crimean Bridge is gradually deteriorating due to damage from recent attacks. According to Atesh Partisan Group, structural degradation is occurring, and there has been a reduction in enemy air defense on the peninsula, making the bridge more vulnerable to further strikes. So this is a picture coming out from the Crimean Bridge, and we can see some of the damage here, because this bridge has been struck before, and due to the damage from the strikes, we are seeing the bridge basically falling apart. We can see this railing is starting to lean over, and we can see a lot of these panels that were here that appears to be like some walkway here are starting to fall out as well. So obviously the Crimean Bridge has been a target for Ukraine for a long time. Maybe they will strike it at some point. I'm sure that the Russians are worried about this, and we have even seen like Russian Panzer air defense systems literally sitting on top of the bridge trying to defend it. We know that the Russians have been building barricades on the bottom to protect it from Ukrainian Magura V5 naval drones also. This was just some pictures coming out on X that I thought I would show you also, as this bridge is starting to degrade from the recent strikes. So also coming out from next to again, Polish security services have neutralized a sabotage operation organized by Russia and Belarus to destabilize Poland, Deputy Prime Minister Krzysztof Gawkowski said. He said saboteurs operating from Belarus in cooperation with Russia had infiltrated local and central government offices, including state-owned companies carrying out military contracts. This was reported by Reuters. Belarusian and Russian foreign services had a specific goal: extorting information, blackmailing individuals and institutions, and conducting actual cyber warfare, Gawkowski said. The operational goal, data theft for blackmail purposes, was failed. He said the number of cyber attacks has doubled since last year, targeting Polish organizations and institutions, including logistics companies, that to make military deliveries to Ukraine, he said. So we know that Poland is a major transport hub for Ukraine. A lot of the weapons that come from NATO pass through Poland on over to Ukraine. So it wouldn't surprise me that Poland is at the epicenter of these attacks, especially cyber attacks. But yeah, according to the Deputy Prime Minister coming out and saying that they have neutralized a sabotage operation organized by Russia and Belarus, and we've been seeing lots of this happening all throughout Europe. We've even seen lots of bases in Germany going on high alert due to what they consider is Russian sabotage events, whether it be from drones or people on the base that are trying to sabotage the water supply. I've reported that to you guys as well. So we are definitely seeing lots of this happening in Europe, and it's all being blamed on Russia consistently, stating that they are trying to destabilize their countries or destabilize NATO. So big report coming out from Poland to share with you in regards to that. Also from NOAA reports, British intelligence shared new satellite images of the damage inflicted on Marinovka Airbase in the Volgograd region in Russia, which was struck by Ukrainian drones on August 22nd this year. We did a whole report on this airbase when this came under attack that day. 4 aircraft shelters, support buildings, an antenna, fairing, open storage areas, and 3 additional aircraft shelters were damaged. So we have these photos that came out from the UK government showing some of these destroyed areas inside this airbase. I showed this to you guys on October 22nd when it came under attack, and it was definitely a massive attack by Ukrainian drones and destroyed majority of this airbase. So we can see August 19th, before the strike happened, there was like a storage area here. Afterwards, completely gone. So, okay, you can see there was some sort of storage here, destroyed now. This building looks to be, for the most part, intact. There was a small, like, shed thing right there that got destroyed. We'll look at some other photos here also. We can see all these hangars, okay, 4 destroyed aircraft shelters right here. So these 4 are gone. And then also 2 damaged shelters down here. We can see a huge hole here, and then also some damage to this one. And we also showed you guys some pictures around the time this attack took place. Ukraine was apparently using some types of explosives that had shrapnel inside of them too, like some BBs. So whenever these things exploded, it launched a bunch of these pellets everywhere. And some of the up-close footage was showing the inside of these hangars. You could see a bunch of pellet holes everywhere. So it was definitely designed to do massive explosive damage and splash damage. We can see also there was some storage back here destroyed, and then some other crates here too. It looks like maybe some logistical trucks that were destroyed also. We can see fire right here, and then a bunch of buildings over here completely wiped out also in this attack. So it was definitely a major, major strike on the Marinovka airfield. We've got one more picture to take a look here. Just before the strike, looks like maybe some weapons depots. Destroyed open storage areas is what it says here. Look at all this, just completely wiped out, guys. Everything caught on fire, and the storage areas here too. This whole section completely gone and destroyed after this took place. And if you notice, just charred areas everywhere here as a major fire broke out just after the strike happened. And I showed you guys video footage from somebody that was recording nearby on that same day, and it just showed the whole airfield on fire. It was a massive plume of smoke coming from the airfield, and he was basically reporting throughout the entire time that the entire airfield was destroyed, is kind of what he was saying, how he was describing it. So also one last report from Military News UA. Russian aviation channels report that Armenia handed over to Ukraine S-300 OSA Tor and Buk air defense systems. Okay, so take this one with a grain of salt. This is coming from Russian aviation channels. It has not been completely confirmed, but their aviation channels were reporting that Armenia had supposedly handed over S-300 air defense systems over to Ukraine. This is some pictures of some of those systems right here. And I can't completely confirm this, but multiple independent news media is reporting this on X right now, and we're seeing a lot of this. This was apparently the original report from Fighter Bomber, actually. Some people were saying that this is a Russian propaganda channel, so you can't completely believe this, but just in case we happen to do see S-300 air defense systems showing up inside of Ukraine, I thought I would show that to you guys just in case it happens to be true. But this was being reported on Russian aviation channels, which appears to be on Telegram. Okay, so lots of big news coming out from Ukraine today. Nothing super exciting, which I think is a good thing in terms of attacks, whether it be on Russia or Ukraine. Looks like this war was relatively subtle during last night. So that is good news for the Ukrainians and also for the civilians inside of Russia, that nobody has to deal with major attacks going on throughout the night. Hopefully people were able to get some good sleep. But just wanted to report the latest to you, let you know what's going on over here between the war of Russia and Ukraine. So let me know what you think about these updates today. Share your thoughts, concerns, and opinions down in the comment section. That's going to be it for this update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, I hope y'all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.